Richard. Want to tell me a little bit about your painting career?
Well, I've been painting the sea and historic ships for the last 40 years. I like to do detail research on them before I paint them, so when I paint a painting of a ship, every rivet and every bolt is as it was when the ship was alive. And the retinue of ships out there and historical poses you can put them in is really, and do the great American yachts of the 19th and early 20th century. They were just like winds of cotton on the wind. They were gorgeous boats. Uh, Historical ships like the old Nantucket to Block Island uh, boat that went out there, and on the 4th of July they would dress them in all their colors and all their glory to celebrate the 4th of July. Civil War paintings depicting historic events when the Union 90-footer captured the Roanoke off the coast of South Carolina in 1864, and everything on those ships is exactly as they were when they were alive, rivet to rivet. I try to do it exactly as they were, because that's the only way to really correctly display historical ships. I mean, a lot of times you see pictures of the Santa Maria. Nobody knows really what it looked like. These ships were all photographed in their day. And you're doing them and your buyer, your client, a disservice if you don't depict them exactly as they were. And so that's the way these were. These were called Lincoln's 90-day wonders. 90 days from laying of the keel to launch. And they were really the destroyers of the Civil War. They mounted one heavy 30-pounder and some lighter guns, but this is the one that really did the damage up on the bow. And right after the Civil War ended, the Navy surplused them out. Most of them wound up as towboats, tugboats, or lumber haulers, and they were just gone from the scene by 1890. But during those 4 years of the Civil War, they really did a job for the Union Navy, and that's what they call Lincoln's 90-day wonders. That's what they were. This is a painting of the Confederate raider Alabama. The Alabama was the deadliest raider the Confederate Navy had. It was captained by a man named Sims, and he was 100% dyed-in-the-wool believer in the cause. While the Alabama was under his command, they sank 29 Union ships, mostly whalers and merchantmen. What happened here is they burned the boilers out, and just like the German battleship in the Second World War that had to go to Paraguay, couldn't go on any further, and the English Navy was waiting for it, they went into Cherbourg for repairs. But because Cherbourg was neutral, they could only stay 24 hours. He could not repair his boilers in 24 hours, and out in the channel, the USS Kearsarge was waiting for him. And knowing he could not defeat the Kearsarge without his boilers up, he had the ship dressed in his best colors, the crews in their best uniforms. And the little pickup band on the pilot boat played Dixie when the pilot came back on board. So the name of this painting is "And the Band Played Dixie." And 4 hours later, the Alabama was a wreck on the bottom of the English Channel. And that's the story of the band played Dixie. Well, the hardest part of this, once I got the painting laid out grammatically and correctly, and had it positioned correctly with the right amount of distance between the two boats, would be to get this word Cherbourg on there. And I figured I would use that type of font, and lettering is not my strong suit. I think it came out all right, but that's after about 6 tries to get that the way it is. So, I mean, lettering is just not my thing, but I think it worked out. And it was pilot boat number 3 that took the pilot out to the Alabama and then took him off when the ship cleared into the channel. So that's what pilot boat number 3 looked like in 1864 out of Cherbourg.
The smoke in the sky and the sails.
Well, the ship left early on Sunday morning, and that's about the way the sky would look about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning over the channel.
That's right.
And that's the way I depicted it. Now, I mean, it might have been a little more overcast. There's no way to know today. So you do it in what an early morning September would look like, and I think that's got it pretty well. But again, you're dealing with historically you can get the ships correct, but to get the exact sunlight lighting at the time of day the action happens, sometimes it's just almost impossible. It could have been threatening storm. It could have been a blue sky with no clouds at all. We don't know. So I try to make it look typical of the time of day of that time of year, and that's as close as you can get. By the way, archaeologists just found the wreck of the Alabama in the channel about 10 years ago, and all 40,000 pounds of that 32-pounder is still sitting there waiting to fight again for the Confederacy.
What, the cannon?
The cannon weighed 40,000 pounds.
Wow.
And it's waiting to get to fire for the Confederacy, but I don't think it ever will. They're going to bring it up and put it in a museum in the United States.
Okay.
Okay.
So what's behind you, Richard?
All right, this is a painting of one of the most famous schooners of all time, the American yacht, American-built yacht, America. It was the boat that founded the America's Cup, which is still a sought-after prize today. And it was designed by some geniuses in Groton, Connecticut. It sailed to England and threw down a gauntlet that it would take on the entire British Royal Yacht Club for a race around the Isle of Wight. And it went up against 15 other boats. Now today, the America's Cup is just two boats. The American boat and whatever contender is up against it. But this was taking on most of the better British boats at the time. Queen Victoria and the Prime Minister Disraeli were watching the race from the Isle of Wight, and she saw the American boat come into view, and she said, "Prime Minister, isn't that the American boat?" And he said, "Yes, madam, it is." And she said, "Well, who's second?" And he said, "Madam, there is no second." There is no second.